So we have started.
Hello everyone. So we are here for the second session of biotechnology drafting. It is going to be a very brief session wherein we are going to discuss the assignments that I have given you on the in the last session. Uh, just for your quick reference, I'll give you a quick overview of what we discussed yesterday, and then we can proceed for the assignments. Just give me a minute. Is the slides visible to everyone? So to start with, I would highly recommend that there is this crash course coming, wherein we will quickly discuss all these matter again, for especially for the patent agent aspirants. So IPTSE is launching. It is starting from 12th March, I guess. So those who have missed, you can join that crash course, and wherein we will uh, discuss it sufficiently enough so that you also have time to prepare for, at your final stage of exam preparation for the exam, and also you get the understanding of the matter. I highly recommend that course. From 12th March it is starting. You can join that course. Again, in the crash course, all the important topics will related to Patent Act and the drafting and the prosecution will be discussed. Okay, so in the last session we discussed, we got ourselves introduced with biotechnology inventions. What are those? We also discussed briefly about Section 3 of Patent Act and how there are issues related to the patentability of organisms, including humans. Some in some society there are also issues related to the animal patenting. We also discussed what is the subject matter of cDNA. We discussed all these in detail, and we discussed that what would be the claim structure of biotechnology. I told you about various aspect of claim drafting and uh, preamble, transition, element, and when to bring in functionality and when not to bring functionality, so as to make claim more accurate. And I also told you how it depends upon the subject matter of the patent as to when to use functionality. For example, in biotechnology patent, sometimes the biotechnology is so uncertain a science that you need to specify the molecule or the polynucleotide through their functionality. So we have discussed all that in detail. We also discussed about the special requirements in complete specification for biotechnology patents. So all the authorities and what all permission you need to take, sequence listing, right? We also discussed how in biotechnology patent the prong of industrial applicability becomes even more important than with comparison to other subject matter. We also discussed about do and don'ts, what to do, what not to do in a complete specification. Unity of invention we discussed, and then NBA authority we also discussed. We also discussed some of the examples of the claim, how it was drafted. We discussed both the side, why it is good claim, why it is bad claim, what are the uh, good part and bad part of the claim, which should not be done while drafting a claim. And I gave you some very basic exercise. Uh, related to claim drafting. So these are the 3 exercises that we need to cover today. I also have received some of the assignments. Let me tell you who all have given me. You want me to share the answers, or I mean answers that participants have provided? I don't know if they might take it otherwise. Gurpreet has shared, Niharika Mishra has shared, and one more girl. Just a second. Prasanti, Prasanti A from Group C has shared their assignments. So I've seen all these assignment. The assignment is okay. Basic things are taken care of, but it require more of understanding from the subject matter point of view. So I will excuse you for that because maybe you're not well equipped with the subject matter of the technology. But otherwise, as far as basic structure of claim is concerned, it is all right. We'll discuss. Let me just share it. Chetna, would it be fine if I share the assignment so that we can discuss it quickly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, this is the answers by Prasanti. So, the first exercise was cDNA with unique sequence described in complete specification with sequence ID 4. 70% of the sequence ID has marked deficiency in gene cloning. Can be used industrially to manufacture insulin. Now, cDNA, it is something you first, as I said, you have to understand the subject matter. When the questions will be asked, the subject matter will be explained. So, my first suggestion will be if you're not comfortable with the subject matter, don't attempt that question. Why to get into that? First suggestion. Suppose you feel that, okay, my biotechnology is not that good. I should not really attempt to that question. Don't attempt to that question. Okay. If you're good at mechanical engineer, do mechanical, electric, chemical, pharmaceutical. Do pharmaceuticals. That is the first suggestion. Now, once you have an understanding of the subject matter, you will definitely be able to draft a good claim, provided you're following the fundamentals of claim drafting. It does not require your fundamental, very advanced knowledge of claim drafting. It would require just fundamental of claim drafting. So let's see here, the cDNA is to be, just a second, okay, there is some noise. Okay, so here the claim says about cDNA, and it says that the cDNA which we are claiming is it has to be it has to be 70%. There has to be 70% similarity with the sequence ID which we assumed is already provided in the complete specification. And this cDNA is used everywhere for the purposes of gene cloning. So this basic knowledge has to be there if you're drafting this claim, and then you will be able to actually see that what is the purpose of claim, what we want the claim to say, what invention actually is mota, you will get that idea. Okay. So when Prasanthi has drafted the claim, let's see. An antibody to bind protein XYZ at site 123, homology at 70%. This is the question. I claim an antibody to bind protein comprising. Now see, okay, so first claim she has written an antibody to bind protein comprising protein XYZ specifically binding at site 123. Now, if you have knowledge of some basic knowledge of biotechnology, you would understand that the protein always binds to a particular site. There is a mechanism called key and lock mechanism. It always binds to a particular site. Okay. So this thing is not really inventive. What the function of binding is providing, the detail of binding at particular site in question is only to specify the protein to make it certain. This is the purpose of this particular detail. That's why I've provided it that it binds to site 123. So the protein can be characterized various ways, like through polynucleotides, through polypeptides, and from what RNA it is coming. It can also be characterized from the site of binding. So this detail is provided only to characterize that particular protein, that this protein has this particular functionality, and therefore I am just making it more certain. Okay. So this claim is not really the inventive step of the invention, and this claim is, I mean, this is very broad claim without really claiming the inventive step. Okay. Next, let's come to the second. The antibody to bind protein XYZ claimed in claim 1, wherein homology is achieved at least 70% of the sequence ID1 and 30% of sequence ID2. Now, now, this is very good example actually. What will happen? Suppose you draft this claim and you put it before the patent office as an attorney. Okay. Now, me as an examiner, I would say that your first claim is very broad because you're simply claiming any protein which is binding at site 123 without really saying that what it actually going to do. Okay. So, as an examiner to you, Mr. Attorney, I would say, please bring your claim number 2 to claim number 1. So let me just tell you what I'm trying to tell you, trying to say. This this part wherein homology is achieved with at least 70% of sequence ID1 and 30% of sequence ID2, this claim, this element of the claim should be brought to this element. Okay. So when I delete claim number 2 and bring this red element next to this yellow element, my first claim would say an antibody to bind protein comprising a protein XYZ specifically binding at site 123 and the end. Let's just connect, delete it. Let's just delete it like this. And where homology is achieved at least 70% of sequence ID and 30% of sequence ID2. Okay. So now what I have done is the independent claim, which was very broad in nature, I have brought the element of claim to the independent claim. So the independent claim become more narrow. This is from the point of view of an examiner. Okay. Next, let's go to third. The antibody to bind protein XYZ claimed in claim 1, wherein homology is also achieved by at least 50% of sequence ID1 and 20% of sequence ID2. Now, just give me a minute, okay? Let me just see the exercise. I have not written anything about the sequence ID too. So this is, I think, you have done it by your own. But nonetheless, as I told you, the typically what we want to do is we want our independent. I know as an attorney, you would want your independent claim to be broad, but then it has to be broad from the attorney's point of view. Also, it has to be specific. It should not be that broad that it contains everything. Okay. So simply saying that protein binding at particular site, it is, you are basically trying to claim all the proteins which is binding at that particular site. That is not my objective. That is not my invention. My invention is that my protein is binding at that particular site and also producing insulin. So the element of insulin has not come anywhere. You have to really be specific enough. As I said in the last presentation, you don't have to be very specific. You don't have to be very broad. You have to be specific enough so that your claim is not vague or very broad. Okay. Now let's come to other assignments. Okay, I'm sharing this. Just a second. Now, this is by Mr. Gurpreet. So Gurpreet, he is just third one. Just a second, just a second. Just claim. Yeah, this is the claim one. Let me just share it again so that. Yes. So he has written an extracted polynucleotide comprising of an hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7. This is claim 3. Okay, there is some, it is not very clear, this assignment. Let me just bring to what the answer would be without wasting much time. Let's go to the answers. That has to be. See, first you have to understand that in patent agent examination, they don't expect that you are very good at claim drafting and you would do everything correct. Okay. Secondly, what they will look for, whether your fundamentals are clear or not for the claim drafting. Your claim is not very broad enough. Your claim is not very specific. It is, specific enough. Thirdly, they would also see that you have read the question well or not, because understanding of subject matter is fundamental to any kind of patent drafting, despite the whatever is the subject matter, whether it's biotechnology, mechanical, chemical, whatever, the understanding of the subject matter has to be there. So in the patent agent examination, whatever matter is given you, based on that matter, you have to understand from limited whatever it is given. From that matter, you have to understand the subject matter and you have to ensure that your fundamentals of claim drafting is correct. Okay, it is starting with a then if it is the word is an element is getting repeated, always be it should always start with the. All these things should be there. Now let me just. Okay, this is the answer that I have prepared for you. So the first exercise, which was this, cDNA with unique sequence described in complete specification with sequence ID 4. 70% of sequence ID has marked efficiency in gene cloning, can be used industrially to manufacture insulin. This is the answer. Now it says that a cDNA comprising a plurality of nucleotides, because cDNA will always have nucleotides, wherein, always comma before wherein, at least one nucleotide sequence corresponds to insulin. So I have said that my cDNA has number of nucleotides. It has billions of nucleotides, but at least one nucleotide sequence should be there which corresponds to the insulin, first criteria, and the plurality of nucleotide has 70% identity with sequence ID 4. So this is the a plurality of nucleotide. You can see here, this is the element which is repeated here. The plurality of nucleotide has 70% identity with sequence ID 4. So my claim is, see, it is very crisp. It has all the necessary details and it is also specific enough. Okay. I am not saying that what rest of the nucleotide should have. I am not saying 30% identity should be with some other nucleotides or some other sequence. 30% can be anything. If I'll say 30% should be this, then I am, and it is not required by the invention. So when I'm saying 30% is sequence ID 5, suppose, then I'm limiting the scope of my claim because I have put an additional element, right? So also by saying that the one nucleotide has to be corresponding to be the one nucleotide has to be corresponding to the insulin, I have ensured that the cDNA which I am claiming is specific enough for the insulin production. So if anybody is using this cDNA without my consent for the insulin production and matching with 70% identity of sequence ID 4, it is immediately infringing my claim. Okay. So this is the first answer that I have. If you might want to take a photograph of this, you can take a photograph of this. I'm moving to exercise 2. Exercise 2 is extracted polynucleotide hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7. Most preferred is sequence ID at 10% of sequence ID 1 and preferred is 7% of sequence ID 1. Now, here we have to understand first that whenever there is a concept of hybridization in biotechnology, hybridization means basically you understand like you're mixing the elements of the two polynucleotide. It can be chromosome, it can be DNA, it can be polynucleotide, it can be anything. Okay. So when hybridization happens, then if you've been a student of maths, you will note that it is the question of permutation and combination, not probability. Okay. It is the question of permutation and combination. And there can be number of permutation and combination in which the hybridization can take place. So by very nature, the hybridization of any two polynucleotide would result into number of permutation and number of combination, and it will make your claim very broad and vague, right? Therefore, whenever you discuss about hybridization in your claim, you should make it somewhat specific. You should not leave it that I am just hybridizing sequence ID 1 and 7 and leave it to that. No, that claim will be very vague and very broad. Always hybridization has to be specified with some kind of the next element of the claim should say some kind of limitation to that hybridization. So that's what I have done here. And another part is the homology, that most preferred and preferred homology that I'll discuss shortly. So see the claim, an extracted polynucleotide wherein the polynucleotide is hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7. I have said that. Okay. That it is hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7. Now, as I said, if I leave my element to the sequence ID 1 to 7 hybridization, it is very vague because there is a lot of permutation and combination which is possible. All right. So now in the next element, I have limited that claim. How do I limit that claim? The polynucleotide has at least 7% homology with sequence ID 1. I have said that after hybridization, I am claiming only those polynucleotide which has at least 7% identity with sequence ID 1. This way, I have limited my claim by limiting the number, filtering out the results from the total number of hybridization. Okay, so if suppose let's just assume that if it is 1 million hybridized polynucleotide is the result, I have shortlisted 50,000 only, cause the only 7% homology with will come with the 50,000 of the polynucleotide. All those 50,000 I am claiming. Okay, so this makes my claim very specific. Now the question is why I have chosen 7% homology with sequence ID1 and why I have not chosen most preferred embodiment, which is 10% of sequence ID1. So one of you rightly answered in the previous session that when as an attorney I have to see that my client gets the maximum benefit. So I will claim the embodiment which is there in the invention, not the most preferred. It is the job of examiner to get that amended and put most preferred embodiment. As an attorney, I would always try that he gets maximum protection and his preferred embodiment should get the monopoly, not his most preferred, because most preferred embodiment would certainly be more specific than the preferred embodiment. I want a broader protection for my client, and therefore I will choose that embodiment which is the preferred embodiment, but not the most preferred. Or if, see, the terminology may vary. Suppose it may say that the one of the embodiment is this and preferred embodiment is this. Then you have to choose from the one of the any one of the embodiments, not the preferred embodiment. It can be like preferred, most preferred, they can say, or they can say embodiment, preferred embodiment. Then you have to choose the embodiment, not the preferred embodiment. So just be mindful of that, that as an attorney you always should try to get the preferred embodiment claimed. In patent agent examination also they will look for that, and if the question has this kind of trick, then please use from the be the attorney, don't be the examiner. Okay, be the attorney and indicate the preferred embodiment, don't indicate the most preferred embodiment. Okay, in your answers. Now let's come to the exercise number 3. Okay, an antibody to bind protein XYZ at site 123, homology at 70% of sequence ID 1 and 30% of sequence ID 2, and preferred embodiment is this. Okay, so this is again very simple. This is similar to this is actually a hybridization of question number 1 and question number 2, wherein I have also put the functionality, I have also put the preferred embodiment, and uh, there are elements which can further specify the molecule, make it specific enough. As I say, it has to be specific enough. Okay, so let's see. So the claim says an antibody with affinity to bind protein XYZ at site 123, which is functionally it is giving it a specificity, because I have said that it binds at site 123, wherein the antibody has hybrid polynucleotide sequence of sequence ID 1 and sequence ID 2, first limitation, and the antibody has at least 50% homology of sequence ID 1 and 20% homology of sequence ID 2. Again, I have chosen an embodiment, not the preferred embodiment. Okay, I want more degree of I want the scope of my protection to be broad. So as an attorney, I would always go for with the embodiment which is covering the more number of combinations. So this was covering the more number of combination, and therefore I chose that particular embodiment. See, whenever you say that it is embodiment of the invention, it is assumed that that is going to be one of the claims. But if you really have to choose between most preferred and preferred, always choose preferred so that you get broader protection. In patent agent exam also you do this way. If there are two embodiments, preferred and most preferred, always use preferred embodiment in your independent claim and the most preferred embodiment in your dependent claim. I am telling this again. Always use preferred embodiment for your independent claim and most preferred embodiment for your dependent claim. So for example, when this is the claim, independent claim, exercise number 3, the dependent claim would say an antibody as claimed in claim number 1, wherein the homology is 70% of sequence ID 1 and 30% of sequence ID 2, the most preferred. It should never be independent claim. Always make it dependent claim. So this way what happens is, though you have your independent claim is broad and giving the broader protection to your client, the dependent claim is the most preferred claim, and it will also be a monopoly or a specific monopoly to your client without losing a broader protection through claim 1. Okay, am I clear? I hope I am. I think this is it from my side. I am open for questions if you have any.
So, let's just wait for 2-3 minutes so that participants could join and ask the question.
Sure.
Sir, I think we can go ahead.
Yes, please, your questions.
Hello, so Dipali, this side, I had a question.
Yes, Dipali, please.
So it could be a very basic question that is probably related to the conceptual clarity of the subject. Sir, I wanted to know because we mentioned plurality of the nucleotides. Is there a possibility that
Sir, I think we can go ahead.
Yes, please, your questions.
Hello, so Dipali, this side, I had a question.
Yes, Dipali, please.
So it could be a very basic question that is probably related to the conceptual clarity of the subject. Sir, I wanted to know because we mentioned plurality of the nucleotides. Is there a possibility that
Sir, I think we can go ahead.
There is some issue, I guess, some technical issue here. It is getting repeated again and again.
Yes, sir.
no? Hello?
Yeah, it is like a tape recorder being switched on. I don't know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's getting repeated. Can I ask the question one more time,
Yeah,
or
please.
should I wait, sir?
No, just start.
Yeah, so I wanted to know, because we mentioned plurality of the nucleotides, is there a possibility that there could also be just, a single a nucleotide sequence?
Okay.
Because I do not belong to this segment, I am just trying to, understand as much as I can.
Okay, okay. No, no, Dipali, I mean, for the very, what should I say, simple organisms like unicellular organisms like amoeba, you know, or these kind viruses, not even viruses. The single nucleotide is never a possibility. Single nucleotide is just a chemical. It has no identity, okay? So nucleotide, it is like a sequence. Which field you belong to, Dipali?
Sorry, sir.
Which field are you from?
I belong to food technology and engineering.
Okay, okay. So basically the nucleotides it codes something, okay? It codes a protein. So suppose nucleotide XYZ, it corresponds to a amino acid, and amino acid together form a protein. This is the sequence, okay? So one nucleotide in itself means nothing. It's just a non-living chemical, okay? So there has to be not just two, three, four, five nucleotides, but there has to be millions of nucleotides for a protein to form, okay? Or I should not really number it, should be millions, hundreds, or whatever, but one or two or three or five or 10 nucleotides will not form a protein. So understand this, three nucleotide will form an amino acid,
Mm.
and number of amino acid will form a protein. So three nucleotide itself is needed to code a amino acid. Are you getting my point? Yeah. So therefore, it is not possible to have a single nucleotide in a.
So I got confused because we wrote plurality of this thing. So normally in other inventions, when only there are like more than two features, or more than two components of the same thing, we write
Correct.
plurality. So I
Correct.
kind of thought, I got confused. I was
No, no,
like,
you are
okay.
absolutely right. Plurality we use when there are more than two, not more than one, okay? More than two. But then I have written it. Since I am following very basic protocols of claim drafting, I am not really used the words which you are not aware of. Plurality is something which is fundamental to claim drafting, and therefore I thought of using that particular word. You have, again, I'm saying for patent agent examination, just be very sure that your fundamentals are correct and you are using your fundamental knowledge to put the claim structure together.
So I would
That
like
only will
to,
give you get you marks.
sorry sir, I would like to add
Yes, sir.
that nucleotides are always
Thank you,
ATGC,
sir.
four nucleotides are there. So that will be always a plurality.
Yeah, 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 you're absolutely right. More than two, it has to be there. So yeah, it
Yeah,
has to
so
be.
always there will be plurality only because they are four in number. They are basic four nucleotides. So
You're right.
the sequence,
See, in ideal world, if you're drafting as an attorney, you need not to mention plurality even, because it is a person who is skilled in this art. He would know what I mean when I say nucleotides or when I say cDNA. He would know what I mean. Okay, but then since we are this whole session is for the purposes of an examination to get the marks out of it, right? So we have to be fundamentally very clear, and fundamentally also it should reflect in our answer that we are fundamentally clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any other question?
Sir,
Mhm.
excuse me, sir. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, please.
So could you suggest some resource wherein at least we could get, basics of biotechnology, this thing, basic concepts in biotechnology? Because if, unfortunately in exam, something like, this kind of situation happens, that there is a some invention from some other domain, like maybe which could not be attempted, some difficult mechanical invention, something like that, and then followed by that would be a biotechnology invention, and then we have to choose, and then maybe no choice than opting biotechnology. So we should be equipped. That's why I was wondering if we could get a resource wherein we can at least get familiar with the basic concepts, and or only reading the patents is the key.
See, your question will be self-sufficient because the patent office knows that the people who are sitting, they might not be biotechnologists, and they want to, if they are giving a tough mechanical engineering question, in my understanding, they will also give optional question which are easy so that somebody attempts that. If they are giving tough mechanical engineering, then also tough biotechnology question, then they would also understand that we have to cover all the domain because there are all the engineers. Having said that, for you, I think there is not much of time to really study the subject matter. If you're not biotechnologist, there is no point. I would say that you get your fundamentals clear in biotechnology. And also in your career also, I am a chemical engineer, but I have drafted chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, electronics, software engineering, every patent I have drafted. And before drafting, I do not any go and get my mechanical engineering concept clear. I try to understand the subject matter. I also try to get the clarity from the inventor. And then with mix of two, it takes me 5, 7, 8, 10 days to draft a claim and a complete specification, right? But you're in exam, you have only 1 hour or 2 hour, whatever. So that kind of preparation will not suit. I would suggest just uh, if you think that your mechanical engineering patent is difficult and you want to get biotechnology drafted, the question in itself would say that what you have to say, what you have to claim. Just try to find out the invention, and after finding the invention from the specification in the question paper, you only have to paraphrase that invention into a claim. Are you getting my point? So suppose you will identify that this paragraph or this four line, this four line, this four line constitute the invention. Suppose in the examination you have identified para number 4, line 2 to 3, 7, 9, 5 to 4, para 8, 3 to 5 is my invention. Now you simply has to mark those inventive step and paraphrase into the claim by following the claim drafting rules. This is what you have to do to crack the exam, to get the marks. Are you getting my point?
Yes,
Don't
sir.
apply your
Okay,
mind.
sir.
Don't apply your mind. Don't go into basics because you do not know the basics. You don't have time to
Correct.
get the basics. If it was a drafting for a client, I would have said, please get your biotechnology concept clearer so that you can draft a claim for the client. But this is your drafting for the examination. So treat it that way. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And yes, do attend the crash course. That is very important because that will again summarize your whole preparation, what you have done in this 3, 4, 5 months. This will summarize the whole. It is like a quick revision. अगर आप खुद से रिवीजन करते हो और कोई दूसरा फटाफट रिवीजन करवा देता है, तो that is faster and efficient way to do that. Do attend your crash course. We all will discuss again all these scenarios, and probably there will be questions uh, related to the field and related to the patent agent examination. That will be very helpful to you, to all of you.
Good morning, Vivek sir. Rajesh Sharma speaking.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir, in the second exercise, or perhaps the first one, there was no transition phrase used. You from the preamble, you used wherein and went into the body straight away. So was it on purpose or?
My question, just let me see.
There was no consisting or comprising. Nothing was there.
Which one you are saying? Example number?
Second or first? The last one, of
Second,
course.
yes. An extracted polynucleotide. Yes. See, here I am not using comprising because the limitation which has to be provided was to the extracted polynucleotide. See, comprising as a matter of rule, you really put it into those invention which is like a system. For example, a engine is a system wherein there is piston, then rubber, then the fuel injectors, and then burning mechanism. These all are system. But my claim, I am saying my extracted polynucleotide, which is not a system, it is a chemical, it is a molecule, it is a polynucleotide with the limitation which is itself in that polynucleotide only. If it would have been like a system, I would say that the system has element A, B, and C. For example, this pen has element A cap, this back cap, this is 2, this whole system comprises of this. But my molecule itself is the system and the limitation itself applies to that molecule. Therefore, immediately I have limited the claim of the molecule by using wherein. Okay.
But looking at precisely the rules of claim drafting, what would I get limitation for in that case? Because I mean, limitation. I think we did this discussion last time also. That there has to be this transition phrase, and whatever comes after transition phrase is what you get a claim for. So where will we get that distinction? If you can flash the claim again and maybe
Okay.
point out. So, I mean, what am I claiming in that case? Without if there is no so to say transition phrase.
Can you see the?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Now here I have written an extracted polynucleotide. Okay. Now let's see. Let's do what you're saying. Okay. Let's say we write comprising.
In the exact same claim which you're showing on the screen, what are you claiming exactly here? I mean, because unless my understanding may be naive, but I think that it is very important to put a transition phrase, one of the established ones. I don't know, it can be comprising, consisting, or whatever. These are the two I am familiar with. So unless one of those is used, I think I will have a difficulty claiming. What is limiting here?
See, as I told you, the comprising, including it's not just comprising, there are other transition phase also here. And for a system, these kind of transition phase makes sense. Okay. But for a molecule like this, wherein what you're doing is basically you're taking out a molecule polynucleotide, which is a molecule. It has a polyamide molecule, and you're making changes in that polyamide only. It is not a system. The system might comprise of various elements. You're right, and it has to be there, including comprising. But what in this claim in exercise 2, I am saying that this is just a polynucleotide and it has these limitations. The polynucleotide itself has the limitation. It is not like a system which will comprise of elements. The polynucleotide itself has the element. Are you getting my point? So,
Yeah.
So when I say comprising, then I am treating extracted polynucleotide as a system, which cannot be case in the biotechnology. In biotechnology or in pharmaceutical also, you will see this kind of claim, wherein sometimes what happened that you don't really put the claims in form of a system because it is not a system at all. Like I told you, this phone is a system. When I claim it, it is a system because it has a screen, okay, or it has this cover or whatever, it has buttons. So you can actually claim the elements of the system, which is if you disintegrate the system, you can actually come out with the various element of that particular molecule. But in case in particular system, but in case of a biomolecule, what you make changes in the biotechnology biomolecule itself. For example, you make changes in the polynucleotide, or you want that the polynucleotide at site 1 there is this kind of mutations mean change in that polynucleotide. At site 120 you have mutation which is changing one particular amino acid A to amino acid B. Okay, So here I have not drafted this claim in form of a system, because when I say an extracted polynucleotide which comprises, then the person who is working in this field, he would say that what does it mean? Is it a solution that it comprises? Is it a
Sir, but
mixture that it
serine is
comprises? It is the claim itself. Yes, somebody
sir,
else
I'm
was also
sorry.
saying something.
Sorry to interrupt, sir, but serine is a polynucleotide, right? So
That's
we'd
right.
use comprising in that and not in this. So that can be like
Let's see cDNA claim.
there you have used comprising.
Yeah,
So you have used cDNA comprising. That's also polynucleotide, na?
that's all. That's also polynucleotide. We can say that also here. For example, let's try to draft it from the cDNA point of view also. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
So let's say comprising an extracted polynucleotide comprising,
A hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7, something like
yes, comprising, very good, hybrid of sequence ID 127, right?
yeah.
Now, can I use where in here?
If you were to use where in here, then what are you left with? You're left with the preferred or most preferred. That those are the only things left. What
Correct.
what would you use where in for otherwise?
That would be the, as I told you, when you say hybridization, the hybridization would lead to number of permutation and combinations. It will lead to number of permutation and combination, and you have to say that amongst those hundreds of combination, that is the result which all you are filtering out. Only then your claim will be specific, not
So
specific,
here,
specific enough.
so here we can write that wherein one embodiment of the said polynucleotide includes 7% of SEQID.
Wherein, say no, don't use one embodiment. That is for the complete specification. That is not language of claim actually. Wherein, but let's see what you're saying. Wherein,
One embodiment. Now I don't get a
no.
substitute for one
The
embodiment. Then
extracted nucleotide. Let's see how it can go. An extracted polynucleotide comprising hybrid sequence 1 to 7, wherein the hybrid, okay, the hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7 has at least 7% homology with sequence
Sequence ID
ID
1.
1. Does it
Sir,
make sense for you?
sir,
Now,
can
just a second. Now, here you have to be mindful that what we have done here is an extracted polynucleotide comprising hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7, and then when I have used wherein, I have again used the, okay, and these signifying the complete phrase hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7. Now, what has happened here is that the hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7 itself has become one of the element of the claim drafting. So now hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7, when used first time, it has nothing, no the nothing. But when it is used second time, then examiner would know that now you're further restricting hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7%. Right? Now, in the first approach that we take, we did not make hybrid sequence ID 1 to 7 as one of the element. We simply said that, which I was telling you also, that the changes are in the polynucleotide. I'm not saying this approach is correct, that approach is wrong. Either ways, it is okay. But then there is this difference when I'm not using comprising, I am limiting the molecule itself by the wherein. And I am saying that this molecule has these features, the two elements I have defined. Now, when I'm saying comprising, I have made the hybridization of sequence 1 to 7 as one of the element, which is when use second time after wherein. Now the wherein is reducing directly to the combination of sequence ID 1 to 7. In first case, the wherein was reducing the polynucleotide itself.
Sir, like,
Yes.
can I not make it a dependent claim? Like my first independent claim can be an extracted polynucleotide comprising a hybrid of sequence ID 1 to 7.
Hmm.
So if
That can be done. That
this
can
is
be
a
done.
claim, and the follow-up dependent claim can be the extracted polynucleotide of claim 1 with the preferred not a, with a homology of at least 7% of sequence ID 1.
That can be done. That can be done, Mr. Rajesh. But then I have told you in my lecture also, when you're using, I'm repeating it again, it is for everybody. Please be very sure of it, what I'm saying. Whenever we are using hybridization, there are number of permutations and combinations which is possible. And that claim becomes very vague. Okay. So as a matter of practice, whenever we are using hybridization, we ensure that we filter out that hybridization with some kind of limitation, and it is very important that that limitation is in the same claim as that of claim of as that of the element of hybridization. So what will happen typically with what you're suggesting, that first claim will be hybridization 1 to 7. Okay, technically it is correct. Dependent, we put, like you said, technically it is also correct. But then, as a matter of practice, your first claim will get rejected. Why it will get rejected? Examiner would say, basically, you're asking me to monopolize millions of molecule possible out of this hybridization to your monopoly. I'm not going to do that. Please filter that out. Then he would say, bring your second claim to the first claim. I will give you only this many filtered out molecules maybe. So in hybridization, make this point. If the question related to hybridization comes, please make your hybridization specific enough in the independent claim only. Okay. Technically,
Got
again, you're right. You're right. But then we are also engineers. You know what is difference between science and engineering? Okay. Science is that H2 plus O2 is water, right? But engineering is how to make H2 plus O2 in a commercial scale so that I can get profits. This is engineering, right? How to make this efficient. So please be an engineer, because patent is also about technology and engineering. So be an engineer. You're right. Technically, we can have that as independent claim, but that will be very broad, very big. Patent office will not accept it. Examiner will cut your marks.
Got it. Thank you.
One question.
Yes, please.
So the preferred homology will be mentioned in the independent claim. So the most preferred one will be claimed in the dependent one.
Yeah, I think you have missed. I think people were not listening. My lecture was very boring, it seems.
No,
Everybody
sir.
was sleeping.
No, sir. You were saying this. I
No, so
understood
the
that, but
lecture was
how?
very good. However, it was
Yeah.
a bit difficult to relate to.
Okay, okay.
No,
Okay,
sir.
yes,
My
please,
question is,
another
how will you
another
draft the most
pointer, please.
one?
Always make independent claim. The broader embodiment should be your independent claim, not the specific embodiment. So if you have preferred and most preferred, please ensure your preferred embodiment is independent claim, most preferred is dependent. If the language used in complete specification is embodiment and preferred embodiment, one language I told you, one language can be preferred and most preferred. Please use preferred as your embodiment. One language can be embodiment and preferred embodiment. Please use embodiment as your independent claim and the preferred embodiment as your independent claim. Also, वैसे it goes without saying, but just to be sure, always see that your embodiment is broader in scope than the preferred embodiment. In another case, your preferred embodiment is broader than your most preferred embodiment. Always see to that. It will be there. I don't think there will be a complete specification which would give an example wherein most preferred is broader than the preferred. That would be actually going against the fundamental. But just be sure anyway. Okay. Always, and if there is this contradiction which I just stated, which is not possible, but if at all it is there in 1.1% chances, then always claim the broader one in your independent claim and the specific one in your independent claim. Why so? Because we want the claim on the specific one also and the broader one also. If we are making the specific one as our independent claim, then the broader one cannot be claimed as a dependent claim. There can be a smaller circle in the bigger one, but if you have claimed the smaller circle, then you cannot draw the bigger circle or it will go beyond your independent claim. So always make the broader embodiment as your independent claim. Okay.
Sir, can you draft like the independent one in this case?
This is all independent claims only.
No, the
See,
dependent.
in the
Dependent.
exercise 2 and 3, I gave you preferred and most preferred
Yes, right.
embodiments. So preferred embodiments I have given in independent claim, and the most preferred one will be the dependent one.
So
So
can you draft, like I was asking, can you draft like
no,
example?
you draft it and you send it to me in my buffer folder. It is
I have
there with
written,
you.
I'll send you.
Yeah, please send, okay? And I'll check it and I'll let you know. Or you can ask me, you can take number from Chetna and you can ask me directly. Or if you have this group also, you can ask in group, I will reply. Okay?
Okay, sir.
I think we are done for this session. And as I said, please revise your basic fundamentals and try to attend that crash course. That will help you a lot for all your
Sir,
last minute preparations. Yes.
there are 2, 3 questions on YouTube live chat also. If you can answer those, I'll read it to you.
Yeah. You
Sir,
want
Rakesh Chaudhary is asking, what about the plant varieties under PPVFR Act and patent?
no, that is an academic question. Why do you want this for the patent agent examination?
So one more question he has asked that what is the scope of patent agent in the seed or agricultural industry?
See, all this question is something which requires a lecture on the theory, but I will answer that. But then, this is some completely off topic question, but let me answer that. Seed technology, see, there are also patent related to seed technology. For example, there are litigation going on for the Monsanto case before Delhi High Court, wherein the biotechnology as worked upon in seed is the subject matter of the litigation. But as far as scope of this session is concerned, I don't think we should go to that particular area because that will be off topic right now. So let's just postpone it for some other discussion. Any other question?
No, sir, that was all.
Okay. I think this is it then. All the best for your patent agent examination. If you have any doubts, let me know. Put it in the group. Chetna can compile that and send it to me. I will answer that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, sir.
much.
Thank
Bye
you so much,
everyone.
sir.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.